Such a pleasure to see everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I see many people from various media groups. We have TV, radio, and print organizations. We look forward to having an engaging discussion with you all. Today, we gather to explore the benefits of RCEP, the largest free trade agreement that brings together 15 countries in the Asia-Pacific region. This agreement counts in our fellow ASEAN members, as well as Australia, China, Japan, Korea, and New Zealand. This diverse group of nations represents over 29% of the global economy, 29% of the world's trade, 33% of global inward foreign direct investment, 47% of global outward foreign direct investment, and over 2.3 billion of the world's population. With those numbers, RCEP holds great promise for fostering closer economic integration within the region. At this briefing, we will hear and have the privilege of a briefing from our esteemed panelists. To start off, we will hear from Trade and Industry Secretary Fred Pascual. Secretary, please.
Thank you. Esteemed members of the media, my colleagues from DTI, ladies and gentlemen, pleasant morning to you all. Today, June the 2nd, 2023, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP agreement, to date the largest free trade agreement worldwide, will enter into force in the Philippines. As you know, getting here has not been a walk in the park. It has been a decade of intensive negotiations starting in 2013. Our participation in RCEP forms a crucial part of the Marcos administration's goal of boosting economic recovery and expansion. And one of the ways to reach that goal is to expand our free trade agreement network. Becoming part of RCEP signals to the community of nations that the Philippines remains adherent to the rule-based trading system. Through this regional FTA, we recommit to collaborative efforts that ensure that global trade stays open, efficient, and resilient to potential and actual disruptions. As we implement RCEP, we further intensify our international trade education and advocacy campaign. We continue to tighten the comprehensive strategy for its implementation. As we have kept emphasizing before, RCEP is not a magic pill that if we sign up for it, all of a sudden our economy will boom. No, RCEP, to be truly useful and beneficial to our economy, a lot of hard work is needed by government, by the private sector, by all those engaged in businesses with potential for exports. That's why, as I pointed out, we are undertaking an international trade and education advocacy campaign to make sure that all stakeholders in RCEP are fully aware of the gains that can potentially be obtained from RCEP and that they are able to gear up for the requirements of competing in the region for the markets that promises to be a much larger one than what we have right now. At DTI, we have established an import monitoring system to detect any unwarranted surge in import so that necessary trade remedies or policy interventions can be made immediately if there is such import surge. This tool is available to stakeholders for monitoring import volumes of specific commodities by ensuring imports remain within amounts that will not hurt or threaten our local industry. This monitoring initiative builds confidence and fosters collaboration among those involved in the country. Furthermore, we have prepared and are ready to launch the Philippine Export Development Plan, or PEDP 2023-2028. This Export Development Plan also supports the government's effort toward economic growth. That is, strengthening the Philippine export's global position by promoting trade and investments. And RCEP is very much akin to the successful implementation of this Export Development Plan, together with our other free trade agreements with other countries. With this goal, the PEDP emphasizes the creation of an enabling environment for attracting investments and promoting trade. To reiterate, we want to further develop our local industries to cater to both domestic and global markets or export markets. As RCEP takes effect, we commit to supporting Philippine businesses in becoming more productive and competitive within the region and globally. RCEP is a mega free trade deal that will also facilitate the influx of more investments in the country. As with RCEP, the country becomes attractive as a manufacturing hub or production hub for international companies that want to access the markets in the RCEP region. RCEP will reinforce MSME's participation in the global value chain network. We're doing this through improved market access for goods and services, as well as stable and predictable rules. We at the DTI have taken necessary steps to make good on our commitment to form the building blocks so that our industries, particularly MSMEs, can take advantage or utilize the potential benefits from RCEP. RCEP provides a framework of rules and disciplines to guarantee regulatory coherence, foster an environment that is essential for preserving the confidence of the business community and investors, and boost economic growth. Let us view RCEP as a supplementary tool to our efforts in bringing in and attracting more inward investments to spur economic growth and sustainability. Through RCEP, we can make things happen in the Philippines. With this, we urge you, members of the media, our partners, to collaboratively work with us in advancing our advocacies and spreading public awareness on RCEP so Filipino businesses can take advantage of this mega free trade agreement. Thank you very much. And at this point, I'd like to turn over the microphone to my colleague, Assistant Secretary Allan Gepty, who is the guy who really spent years working on the negotiations on behalf of the Philippines in getting RCEP off the ground. So, Asik Allan, the floor is yours.
Maraming salamat, sir. Before we proceed to the open forum, we prepared a very short presentation just to give you a brief rundown of the key features of the agreement, including the benefits and advantages, particularly for the Philippines. So, at the outset, first slide please, I just want to emphasize that when we talk about the RCEP agreement, we're not just talking about trade liberalization and market access. In other words, hindi lang po ito export and import. So, kasama po dito sa RCEP agreement neto, yung rules and disciplines necessary to establish a conducive environment for business and investment. So in other words, basically it covers the whole aspects of running the economy, from goods, services, and investment. Next slide. That is why, if you will examine the RCEP agreement, you will find several chapters covering different fields of disciplines. So meron po tayong goods that tackles trade liberalization, yung reduction or elimination of tariff rates, yung customs procedure, meron po dyan, yung mga sanitary, phytosanitary measures, no, and standards, technical regulations, and conformity assessment procedures. So, yun po, meron po tayo sa goods. But equally important is that we have also chapters that cover services and investments. And there are specific sectors wherein the RCEP agreement has basically highlighted, no, the value and importance of certain sectors. That is why may mga annexes, lalo na kapag pinag-usapan natin financial services, telecommunication services, and even professional services. And also, since ang RCEP ay forward-looking, there are also elements in the agreement that tackles the need to integrate our small and medium enterprises. Kaya itong agreement na ito yung naunang FTA na merong specific chapter on SMEs. And then of course, the need to establish a conducive environment that would encourage our businesses and investors to be competitive. We have included also elements like intellectual property, competition, government procurement, and of course, electronic commerce, which is very important in this time and age. So, in that context, next slide please, kapag pinag-usapan po natin ang benefits and opportunities of the RCEP agreement, then it would cover the areas of trade in goods, services, and investments. Napakahalaga po ito kasi usually the common notion is that kapag naririnig nila ang FTA, immediately what comes to mind is export-import, reduction, elimination of tariff rates. We have to look at the other aspects also of the FTA. Next slides. So in general, ang question is that, what does it provide? Ano ba meron sa RCEP? Given that there are already existing ASEAN Plus 1 FTAs, no, which we all know, no, we have been implementing the same, particularly the regional FTAs that we have together with other ASEAN member states, and the 2 bilateral FTAs that we have. Under the RCEP agreement, in terms of market access, there are set of tariff lines or products wherein we were able to secure better market access. In particular, dito po sa mga partners natin na China, South Korea, and Japan. In addition, meron din tayong additional guaranteed market access sa services, no? Lalo na kapag pinag-usapan natin ang commitments ng Australia, China, South Korea, and New Zealand. And of course, very important is yung rules, no, and disciplines when it comes to investment promotion, protection, and of course, the liberalization aspect. And also, given the fact na meron tayo ritong services sector and of course, chapters and commitments, then mahalaga po ito because it provides opportunities for our professional service providers and also Filipino investors in the RCEP region. So yan po yung general context. Now, I'll give you some key benefits of the RCEP agreement. Next slide. So, unang-una, siyempre, is yung trade liberalization aspect. So, may mga taripa na naging zero yung tariff rates or substantially binabaan natin, no? And offhand, no, malaking bagay ito lalo na sa mga processed foods manufacturers natin, garments manufacturers, and even some agricultural products. Another important benefit is that we have an enhanced trade facilitation provision na mas simple. And of course, mas mababilis. Kaya malaking bagay ito sa mga maliliit na negosyante. They will be encouraged to take part in the global value chain. And of course, we have a more stable market access for services. Kapag sinabi ko pong more stable market access for services, ibig sabihin lang po yan is that kapag ang isang bansa na kausap natin or kasama natin sa RCEP, nag-commit na let's say itong negosyo nito like retail services, or maybe accounting services ay pwedeng pumasok sa bansa ng, let's say, China, ibig sabihin po nun, committed na sila. No, hindi nila basta-basta yon pwedeng baguhin without, of course, breaching their commitment in the RCEP agreement. So yun yung value, parang assurance na pwede kang pumasok. And then, of course, napakahalagang benepisyo dito sa RCEP talaga because nabanggit nga ni Sir kanina na ito ang pinakamalaking free trade agreement. So the fact na lang na meron kang wider sourcing of raw materials, malaking bagay yan, especially if you're talking about manufacturing. So you can just imagine, you can source your raw materials, intermediate goods, no, from these RCEP parties and process these products here in the Philippines and also export the same to the bigger market. Of course, may mga concerns pagdating sa implementation, like kung minsan may mga trade measures that affects your entry in a particular market. So sa RCEP agreement, we made sure na meron tayong clear and time-bound consultation mechanism to address this kind of issues and concerns that our stakeholders would encounter in the process of implementation. And of course, it provides stable and predictable business environment to attract more investments in the country. Napakahalaga po nito. When I say stable and predictable business environment, basically, sinasabi mo sa mga investors na kapag nag-invest ka rito sa Pilipinas and other RCEP parties, ito yung mga basic rules and disciplines na i-adapt at i-implement namin. So in other words, since committed into sa treaty or international agreement, hindi ito basta-basta kayang baguhin, no? Because it's an international commitment. Ito yung tinatawag nating stability. So kahit magpalit tayo, let's say, ng administrasyon or mga officials sa mga departamento, at least stable yung mga policies natin. And also, that benefits our Filipino investors going outside of the country. At alam naman po natin, marami rin naman tayong mga Philippine companies going outside, trying to explore more opportunities outside the Philippines. Next slide. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, malaking bagay din sa mga Filipino professionals and service providers. They have this guaranteed market access and opportunities. Sa financial services, sa telco services, highlight ko kasi ito napaka-importanting sectors ito, especially as we embrace the digital economy. So pinag-usapan mo na lang halimbawa e-commerce, dapat klaro ang mga rules natin, dapat klaro ang mga policies natin. Ganon din sa financial services. That's why isa sa mga assessment ng team is that because of the very comprehensive financial services sector annex in the RCEP agreement, it would really encourage the development of more value-added services in the process. And that includes also the telco sector. It supports MSME development, not only because there's a specific chapter on SME, but if you will review the RCEP agreement, maraming packets of provisions wherein, in a way, our small and medium enterprises will be capacitated. So anong ibig sabihin nun? Ang common notion po kasi is that kapag ang FTA ang pinag-uusapan, usually ang sinasabi, of course, is malalaking company ang nakikinabang. Maybe the reason for that is that kapag malaki kasing company, you have the resources and the capacity to hire lawyers, international trade lawyers, mga tariff specialists, product specialists, mga supply chain specialists. But pag ikaw maliit, siyempre, yung resources mo limited. But here, dahil may mga help desk, may technical assistance, and more importantly, may transparency pagdating sa rules and regulations, at least yung SMEs may empower na ganito lang pala export sa ganitong bansa. Ito pala yung mga rules na dapat kong sundin para ma-access ko yan. So, that's a big step, And then, of course, we just have to supplement the same. Of course, IPR, intellectual property rights, very important. We know that IPR is one potent tool to make your company or business very competitive in this time and age. And of course, the economic and technical cooperation. So, that's the context of the RCEP agreement. Now, just to give you a snapshot kung ano po yung mga, let's say, mga improved tariff concessions na nakuha natin, actually, naibigay na rin po namin to sa mga previous presentations. But quickly, nag-pick ng mga products of interest for the Philippines. Like halimbawa, sa China, malaking bagay na yung mga preserved pineapples natin, pineapple juice, coconut juice, even mga ignition wiring sets natin, pwede ngayon pumasok sa China at a more preferential arrangement. Sa Japan, we have fish fillet, pineapple coffee, one, I would say, promising agricultural product for the Philippines. Chocolate produces leather gloves. Very important din na product kasi I understand our leather industry is quite strong also in the Philippines. And of course, sa South Korea, the dried tilapia, cheddar cheese, papaya, durian, among others. So I will not enumerate these products. You will be given a copy. But at least you'll have an idea of what these products are. Now, another set of examples, just for your appreciation, is that in the case of garments, halimbawa, ngayon meron ho tayong ASEAN-Korea FTA. So pag nag-export ang ating mga garments manufacturer doon, 5% yung taripa. Sa RCEP, magiging 0 po yan. And the good thing is that yung raw materials, pwede mo bang ma-source dito sa 14 countries, no, or 14 parties, no, ng RCEP. Yung sa fish industry natin, malaking bagay po ito, no? Lalo na sa mga canning factories natin, no? Yung mga nagka-can ng sardines, no? I understand about 2 months ago, merong binuksan tayong malaking planta ng mga sardinas. So isang malaking concession na nakuha natin sa RCEP is that inallow nila yung global sourcing. So ibig sabihin, pwede mong kunin yung isda mo anywhere else, no, even outside the RCEP region, process mo rito sa Pilipinas, export mo halimbawa sa Japan with a preferential arrangement. So malaking bagay po 'yon. Of course, alcoholic beverages, no? Sa South Korea, so yung mga beer natin, rum, no, and other alcoholic drinks, pwede na natin ngayon ma-export yan eventually at a preferential rate, no, sa South Korea. Kasi ngayon mataas po ang taripa, 15%. Okay, magiging 0 po yan eventually sa RCEP. Next slide. Yung papaya and durian natin na dati may 15% na taripa sa South Korea, eventually magiging 0 po yan. So isang oportunidad po ito sa mga papaya farmers natin and producers. Ganun din sa durian. Yung coffee, mataas din ang taripa niyan sa Japan, 10 to 12%, eventually magiging 0 yan, no, dito sa RCEP. So yung mga coffee growers natin, no, I hope they will see this as an opportunity. Not only to export coffee, but maybe better to export processed, no, coffee products. Same thing with preserved pineapples, no? Mataas po yan. Dati, may 5% din, may 36% sa South Korea, eventually 0%. Okay? Coconut juice, for example, ganun din. Sa chocolate natin, I think you have observed, marami po mga Philippine chocolate products na ine-export na ngayon. And I think nakita nyo yan. Isa po yung malaking potential sa atin. Kasi, sabi ko nga, kung ang Belgium, ang Switzerland, kayang mag-package at mag-brand ng kanilang Swiss chocolate and Belgian chocolate na wala naman silang kakao, with more reason, ang Pilipinas na merong tayong kakao, kaya natin na mag-package at mag-brand ng Philippine chocolate. No? So kailangan lang talaga ma-level up natin yung ating produkto. And of course, the fruit cocktail and fruit juices. So snapshot po yan, I will not further expound, but at least you have an idea on how it works. Okay. Yung integration ng small and medium enterprises natin sa global value chain ay malaking agenda, no, ng Pilipinas at sinusulong po ito sa lahat po ng fora, sa APEC and other FTA negotiation. In fact, I would say Philippines ang isa sa mga champion, if not the champion, no, pagsulong ng integration ng SMEs sa global value chain. So, paano po sila makakapag-participate dito sa FTAs na to or sa global value chain? Well, siyempre, immediately, ang una is mag-export ng kanilang produkto dito sa mga bansang ito na meron tayong preferential arrangement. But kung hindi mo kaya mag-export, at least may oportunidad ka na magbenta or mag-provide ng services sa mga companies na nag-e-export or nag-provide ng services sa mga entities or companies na part ng global value chain. At dito sa RCEP agreement, eventually, magkakaroon tayo ng mga capacity building, technical assistance, and of course, empowerment, no, of our small and medium enterprises. And the fact na meron tayong e-commerce chapter na comprehensive, malaking bagay po yon. Kasi alam na po natin na yung internet platform is one good equalizer, no, in business. Maraming mga business models ang na-revolutionize because of the internet or e-commerce. So that's it. Sa services, I have a sample here of some sectors and subsectors na pwedeng ma-zis ng ating mga professionals and service providers. So for example, when you talk about audiovisual services or telecommunication services, in-improve po niyan ng Australia. Dagdag po ito, no? Kasi halos marami na rin silang sectors na binuksan sa atin dati. Sa China, yung mga legal services and accounting services, they can set up firms there. okay, and offer their services, taxation services, architectural services. So malaking bagay po ito sa mga professionals natin. So anong ibig pong sabihin yun yan? Instead na ikaw ay magiging empleyado, no, at least dito, kung medyo entrepreneurial ang approach mo, then you can branch out, no, your office in these countries. So same thing with Japan, South Korea, and New Zealand. I will not enumerate, no, yung mga specific sectors that I have included in the slide. But if you will note, no, may mga interesting sectors dito na very promising for the Philippines, lalo na ng game development services, financial services, no, sa South Korea. Ang laking bagay po niyan. And hopefully, eventually, yung mga other financial services or even airport management services, who knows, di ba? Baka makarating na rin po tayo sa ibang bansa. In fact, kung ang port operations, di ba, lumalabas na ang ating mga Philippine companies, so hindi naman siguro malayo, no, na in the near future, may mga Philippine companies din po niyan. Next slide. Now, given that there will be a robust and more active economic activities in the region, siyempre yung telco sector magpo-prosper, and interestingly, yung construction, diba? Logistics. And of course, eventually yung power. Kasi sabi nga nila, as you embrace more the digital economy, siyempre online lahat, the fact remains, no, hindi mo pa rin maaalis na kailangan mo ng malakas na sector pagdating sa power. Kasi kailangan ng power para gumana lahat ng mga computers. Kailangan mo pa rin ng logistics, no, transportation, para merong mag-move ng mga things, products, no, that are being transacted online. So, yan po, magbe-benefit po yung mga sector na yan. So, moving forward, so ngayon pong araw na ito, it's a milestone for the Philippines kasi ito po yung entry into force of the agreement as far as the country is concerned. So, one, in compliance with the Senate Resolution number 42, noong February 21, nag-submit po tayo ng Comprehensive Strategy Plan. Of course, taking into account the scope and coverage of the strat plan, this is a living document. So eventually, as we move forward, as we implement the RCEP agreement, constant po ang communication. At siguradong marami pa tayong sectors, no, nakakausapin para ma-improve ito. And then, of course, we made sure na yung executive order may issue in time, no, for the effectivity of the RCEP. So okay na po yung EO, na-issue na po ni Presidente. Ito po yung executive order number 25. And then last May 26, meron na po tayong Customs Memorandum Order 12-2023 to ensure the effective implementation of the RCEP agreement. So talagang all set na ho tayo pagdating sa implementation. So next slide. So ngayon, ang challenge po talaga is that yung mga stakeholders natin must understand how to trade and do business in the region. No, kasi siyempre, since maraming mga negosyante pa rin na gustong lumaki sila, so dapat tingnan din nila yung malaking market. Our professionals, our service providers must understand how to seize the opportunities offered by the agreement. And of course, for them to know how to invest in the RCEP region and protect their investments. Okay? So, katulad ng nasabi kanina ni Secpred, no? Isa sa or among the programs and projects that we intend to implement is that magkakaroon tayo ng annual international trade forum, no? Bukod sa pagbigay ng mga updates, magiging platform na rin ito, no, sa consultations natin, yung mga issues and concerns ng mga stakeholders, at napakahalaga yung trade education and advocacy campaign. Kasi nga, kailangan natin hindi lang ma-inform ang stakeholders, they have to be empowered how to make use of the FTAs. And of course, one of the plans also is at least magkaroon ng mga assistance centers tayo or FTA clinics in strategic regions and provinces, no, depending on the needs of the province. So ito po mga projects natin and programs in the pipeline. So, yun po. Ngayon, siyempre, dahil concerned din yung influx or inflow of mga imported products, we made sure that we will closely monitor also, no, the importation, no, of certain products here in the country. Kaya last May 31, nag-launch po ang DTI, no, through our Bureau of Import Services ng ating import surge monitoring system. Napaka-importante po ng programa na ito because basically this will empower also our industries and stakeholders to monitor, no, the competing products, no, being imported, no,
by some companies here in the Philippines. Kasi, ang isa sa mga challenges palagi natin, kaya mababa yung ating availment or utilization ng mga trade remedies, siyempre wala rin naman silang information. Gaano ba kadami ang pumapasok, let's say, wiring harness or maybe paper or maybe ball pen, no? Wala silang data wala silang immediate access sa data and information. Through this import search monitoring system, pwede silang mag-enroll, i-monitor ng BIS, and then merong analytics, and then kung merong unwarranted, may sudden or sharp increase ng import ng mga like products, then possible, no, that they can initiate trade remedies like safeguard measures. So, yun po yung value nito. Kaya malaking bagay at nung nag-launch nga ito, in-encourage namin yung mga stakeholders avail of this particular system. So, basically, that's all po. So, maraming salamat. And of course, to you, Sec Fred, you, Sec Perry, Sec Glenn, and to all the officials of DTI, and other agencies that we work with, no, in ensuring the ratification and of course eventual concurrence of RCEP agreement. Maraming salamat po, sir, sa inyong suporta.
Thank you very much, Secretary Fred and ASEC Allan. To give everyone more information about the RCEP, we have prepared a very short video. Let's play it, please.
The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, is a trade agreement between the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, which includes the Philippines, Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and its 5 FTA partners, Australia, China, Japan, Republic of Korea, and New Zealand. The agreement was signed in 2020. The RCEP is the world's largest free trade deal. The RCEP free trade area accounts for 29% of the world's trade, 29% of the world's GDP, 33% of global inward foreign direct investments, or FDI, 47% of global outward FDI. It benefits a population of 2.3 billion. The RCEP makes up 50% of the global manufacturing output, 50% of the global automotive output, 70% of the global electronic products output, 26% of the GVC trade volume, 60% of the GVC for electrical machinery, petroleum and chemicals, textile and apparel, metal and transport equipment, 35% of the global exports of electronics and machineries. The RCEP also is the main GVC hubs of Japan, China, and Republic of Korea. As part of the RCEP, there are low to no tariffs on a broad range of goods and services, and rules have been established for investments, competitions, intellectual property, and digital copyright. The collective membership allows RCEP to deepen trade patterns and supply chains in Asia, with lower trade costs and streamlined rules. As such, all parties agreed to reduce or eliminate tariffs by approximately 92% over 20 years, with eliminated tariffs covering over 65% of goods traded. As part of the RCEP, the benefits are enormous for multiple industries. The garment industries can source fabric from 14 countries and export their products to a bigger market. Fish canning factories can globally source fishes and export them to the RCEP region. Beverage companies can export alcoholic beverages to Republic of Korea at a preferential arrangement, while farmers and producers can export papaya and durian to Republic of Korea. Coffee producers can also export products to Japan at a preferential arrangement. Pineapple producers can export pineapples to Republic of Korea and China. Coconut farmers can export coconut juice to China at a preferential arrangement. Cacao farmers, fruit juice manufacturers, and fruit juice can export to Japan. Filipino inventors, designers, artists, authors, composers, and performers will benefit from the RCEP. The RCEP provides a balanced and inclusive approach to the protection and enforcement of intellectual property rights. Filipino authors, artists, composers, and performers can now expect that their works can be protected under the same standards in the entire region. Filipino professionals with specialized skill sets can provide services and enter the labor market as contractual service suppliers or independent professionals. RCEP creates better opportunities for its professionals, skilled workers, not only in the Philippines but also in other RCEP countries. It encourages more investments in the manufacturing sector, financial services, energy, IDTPG, and research and development, among others. It ensures a credible facilitation and protection of investments. Given that there will be more transparent, stable, and predictable rules on services, trade, and investment. The RCEP enters into full force in the Philippines on June 2, 2023.
Okay, now for the portion that we've all been waiting for, we will move into the interactive question and answer session. To answer your questions, joining Secretary Fred Pascual and ASEC Allan Gepty are Industry Development and Trade Policy Group Undersecretary Perry Rodolfo and Trade Promotions Group Assistant Secretary Glenn Peñaranda. Our panelists are here to explain the implications of RCEP on trade policies, industry development, trade promotions, and more. Before we proceed, I would like to remind everyone to keep their questions concise and focused. For those who will raise questions po, please state your name and your affiliation or organization. So let's start our Q&A. Yes, ma'am?
Hello, good morning. Teen from Today PH. My question is like, basically these are open to all businesses, small and big. Thank you.
Ma'am, pakiulit po yung question.
All right.
And your name and affiliation
Yeah,
po.
I'm Teen from Today PH. So basically, my question is, these are open to every businesses, even the small, the SMEs. And how do they apply? Thank you.
RCEP. There are products that have been excluded in the agricultural sector, which we have been pointing out earlier on, while we were in the process of going for Senate ratification of RCEP.
Thank you, Sec Fred. The lady in brown po.
Ako muna. Alden po from the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Second, can the public expect lower prices with the implementation of RCEP? I mean, it was mentioned that there will be lower import tariffs for goods that are coming here and for greater availability of raw materials for the local manufacturing sector.
Yeah, for those that have been negotiated for lower tariffs, it means that if these are raw materials or components that will be used in the manufacturing of finished products in the Philippines, there will be a reduction in the cost of the manufacturers for their imported raw materials. Okay. Now, for food products, if they're excluded from the RCEP preferential tariff arrangement, there will be a neutral effect.
Just a follow-up question on the trade remedies. Can the Philippines implement or impose a unilateral action like safeguard measure, or does it have to still consult with like a central RCEP committee before it can do that? Thank you.
Pwede po yun, ano? We just have to comply with the elements. Kasi halimbawa, pag pinag-usapan natin yung safeguard, kapag may sudden, saka sharp increase, no, ng importation of a particular product that threatens, no, our local industry, then we can initiate the necessary investigation. So we can do that, no?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good morning, sir. Chris Muno from Philippine News Agency. Sir, ano yung threshold for the import monitoring system? And para malaman ninyo kung may influx ba ng certain commodities. Tapos, paano nyo in-identify po yung threshold if meron?
Yung sa import monitoring system natin, so if you will note, kapag nag-i-import ka, di ba, may specific tariff lines yan, no? So, kung minsan yung description ng product, pwedeng general, pero maraming tariff lines, no? So, ang sinasabi namin is that if you want us to closely monitor, no, the influx of that particular product, pwede ka mag-enroll doon sa Bureau of Import Services natin. Meron sila dong mechanism para makip track nila. Ngayon, ang i-keep track doon is that tumataas ba yung importation. So let's say kapag pinag-usapan natin ay siguro wala lang ako makuhang example, ballpen na lang, no? Halimbawa, kung ikaw ay manufacturer ng ballpen dito sa Pilipinas at alam mo na marami rin namang nagpo-produce niyan, titingnan mo lang yung competition, yung trend, bale. Of course, yung analysis niyan, basically ipaprocess mo pa rin yan kung yung increase nga ay sudden or unsharp, no? So, andyan naman yung mga technical experts natin sa Bureau of Import Services that can assist, no, our stakeholders. And then, depende sa outcome ng investigation, then necessary petition, no, can be filed, no, before the DTI.
Okay, may question po dumating online from Miss Darlene Basingan of NNA Asia. What are the Philippine industries that will benefit the most from RCEP? Maybe you, Sec Perry, can answer.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and thank you very much to Darlene for that important question. Unang-unang magbe-benefit yung mga industriya na yung sinabi ni Asek Allan kanina sa kanyang presentation, magkakaroon ng mas magandang market access sa mga RCEP participating countries. So ang i-highlight natin dito yung mga agricultural products kagaya na nabanggit kanina, pineapple, coffee, cacao, so yung mga yon. But in addition to that, sa industrial side, malaking magiging benefit ng mga workers natin who are in the garment sector. Kasi napaka-importante nung nakuha nating market access through an expanded rules of origin. Kasi ho dati, halimbawa, kung matatandaan natin, ang Pilipinas, beneficiary na tayo doon sa ating GSP, sa GSP Plus halimbawa sa EU, pero pagdating doon, may mga rules of origin na medyo mahirap ma-comply. Yun bang sinasabi natin na yung tela, kailangan halimbawa ay galing sa Pilipinas, o kaya may malaking parte nung garments na ini-export natin na kailangan dito ginawa sa Pilipinas. Ang pinaka-problema talaga natin ho dito yung textile, no? Pero pagdating dito sa RCEP, dahil ito ho ay medyo maraming mga bansang kasama, including for example China and Vietnam, na very important sources of textile. Yung textile yung halimbawa na nanggagaling sa China, pwede nating kunin dito sa Pilipinas, tapos yung mga very skilled workers ho natin, we have about 300,000 workers na nasa export-oriented garments natin, pwede ho nilang i-transform yon into a garment pagkatapos may export natin at 0% duty sa Korea and Japan na very big markets. Dati hindi po pwede yun. Kahit halimbawa sa PIJEPA, 0% duty na yung garments na nanggagaling dito sa Pilipinas papunta sa Japan, hindi ho po pwede na yung textile ay nanggagaling sa China. So those are just two broad examples. Number one, agricultural products, in particular yung pineapple, pagkatapos yung coffee, kakao, tapos sa industrial products natin yung ating garments. Now, another sector na maikinabang din ho dito, yung ating mga export-oriented sectors na gumagawa ng mga components that fit into global value chains. Kasi nasabi ko kanina ni Asek Allan, di ba? Itong RCEP, hindi lang ito about accessing markets. Very important will be the seamless way by which components and inputs in your global value chain as you produce these products gets to be traded and produced. Ang Pilipinas, one of our biggest advantage talaga yung ating labor, highly skilled labor. So, ang very important sa atin is being able to get all of these components seamlessly, no? With the RCEP po, yung trade facilitation regime niya, dati kasi meron na tayong mga FTA halimbawa among ASEAN. Meron tayong ASEAN FTA with China, ASEAN FTA with Korea, ASEAN FTA with Japan, ASEAN FTA with Australia and New Zealand. So iba-iba ho yung trade facilitation regimes doon. With the RCEP, isang buo ho yan, meron ka ng trade facilitation regime for everything. No, so mas magiging madali, and that will be very advantageous for our sectors, lalo na ho yung mga nasa high-tech and labor-intensive sectors that produces components to global value chain. And nakikita na ho natin na papasok na yung mga investors dyan. No? Na-foresee na ho natin ever since the Secretary, for example, announced that the Philippines has already deposited the instrument of ratification of the RCEP to the ASEAN Secretary. At nakita nyo yung mga nag-aagam-agam pa dati na mga investor kung papasok ba sila o hindi. Tumuloy na ho. Makapapansin ninyo to our friends from media, kasama namin kayo nung halimbawa in-inaugurate natin yung isang malaking facility dyan sa Laguna, yung isang yung CERCOM, kung naalala ho ninyo, it's a 2.5 billion plant that will be exporting very important products to North America and also to RCEP. Nung namon-monitor nyo rin halimbawa nung nasa Washington DC si Secretary at si Presidente, nagpirmahan ang IMI at saka yung Zero Motorcycles para i-produce dito yung para i-assemble dito. Sa buong mundo ho, si Zero Motorcycle only produces in the US, California, at saka pinili niya ho talaga yung Pilipinas. Tumingin siya, tapos nakita niya Pilipinas yung napili niya. That would be 20,000 motorcycles, e-motorcycles. And malaking benefit ho yung makukuha niya dun sa RCEP dahil ho yung mga taripa ng electric motorcycles, halimbawa ho, pag mag-export ka ho, halimbawa ngayon sa Australia, ang base rate niya before the RCEP is 5% for electric motorcycles. But with the RCEP, now that the Philippines is a part of the RCEP, magiging 0% duty on year 1. Si China ho, ang taripa niya for electric motorcycles is 45%. No? Magiging 5% po yan, although gradual yung pag-decline all the way to year 20. Si Japan ho, 0 na pagkaraka. Si Korea, it's 8%, magiging 1% ko in year 1. So yan ko yung mga very concrete na benefits na makukuha natin sa RCEP, hindi lang sa mga negosyante, but very important to para sa ating mga workers. Thank you for the question again,
Thank you,
Darlene.
Secretary. That covered a lot of industries. May dalawa pang questions si Ms. Darlene, but we'll take more questions from the floor. Yes po, Ma'am Eileen.
If it opens a lot of markets, if it will open our products to a lot of markets, do you expect surplus in your balance of trade? What's the best case scenario over a 1-year period and over a 10-year period? Thank you.
Maraming moving parts yan, ano? Like what I've said earlier, RCEP is not a magic pill. Okay, a lot of work has to be done particularly by the businesses themselves. They have to improve their productivity, okay, to be able to reduce the cost, because tariff is just one component of the cost of the product. Even if you bring it down to zero, if the production of the product is not done at a low cost or competitive cost, it will not be competitive in the market. So that's something that we want to emphasize when we do the educational campaign for RCEP and other free trade agreements that we have. Some people have made estimates even before the ratification was done. There were studies done by PIDS, okay, but they're all based on certain assumptions. There is no certainty. It's also there are also assumptions on how businesses will respond and will respond actively. Okay, but definitely, if businesses will respond to the potential gains in RCEP, we will definitely benefit. What I have done recently is to look at what has happened to our neighboring countries that have gone ahead of us in joining RCEP. Like, for example, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, their entry into RCEP came into force, I think, early last year, about or more than a year ahead of us. And in all of them, I saw reports of significant increases in their exports to the RCEP market.
One of the problems of businesses is our prohibitive cost of energy, and it's not within their control. So what is government doing to help them in that respect? Kasi hindi nga competitive yung businesses mo pagdating sa electricity cost, and ours is one of the highest.
Yeah, but not all industries are power intensive. I will agree, for power intensive industries, cost of electricity could be a handicap. What the government is doing, we have been trying to attract developers of electric generating capacities or plants, particularly those in the renewable energy sector. The cost of electricity drawn from solar energy, wind energy, for instance, the cost has already come down relative to the traditional sources of energy. In the Philippines, we have the added source of renewable, clean energy. Could be renewable because of the new technologies. I'm talking about geothermal energy. In some countries, even if the steam has dried already, there's a way of renewing the steam available from geothermal wells.
Thank you, Sec Fred. Next, please, the gentleman in the back.
Good morning, sir. So we have you have mentioned the import surge on monitoring system. So how about for the export? How do we strike a balance or make sure na hindi ma-exploit yung resources natin? And do we have specific provisions from the agreement addressing this concern po?
Yeah. Well, we have I referred to the Philippine Export Development Plan earlier. That's one way we can encourage and, of course, monitor exports from the Philippines. Normally, the exporter is one set of companies, importers are one set, and a number of exporters also import components and raw materials. So the balance, for us, there's a big deficit that we need to fill in order to have balanced trade in goods. And that's where that's the challenge we're working on. And hopefully, through the solutions or recommendations made in our export development plan, we'll be able to close that gap.
Okay, one more question from this side po. And then after, sir, the one beside the camera po.
Okay, good morning po, sirs. I'm Bernadette Reyes from GMA Integrated News. Ay, sir. Sir, dito po. Ayan. Opo. Sir, good morning. Nakakasiwa po talaga ang kagandahan ko. De, joke lang, sir. Anyway, sir, it was mentioned by Yusek Rodolfo earlier that it's the agri-sector that stands to benefit, one of the sectors that stand to benefit, but it's also the same sector that expressed its strong opposition to the RCEP. And lagi po nilang sinasabi that this could displace local products and employment. How do we appease this sector? Thank you po.
When you talk of the agricultural sector, that's a wide sector. There are those producing cash crops, there are those that are producing high-value crops, and there are those that are producing raw materials for further processing, like cacao being turned into chocolate and the like. So those coming from the traditional farming communities like rice, corn, and traditional meat producers, the hog raisers, poultry growing companies, they will not be affected at all because their products, their agricultural products, have been excluded from the tariff adjustments called for or negotiated under RCEP. They're excluded indefinitely, okay? Whereas certain agricultural products will start with a certain level and there will be a reduction over 20 years or at the end of 20 years. But those, the common output of our traditional farms like rice and corn, they will not be affected at all. In fact, I have talked to a lot of farmer groups and essentially they understand fully that their crops will not be affected by RCEP. But they want to use RCEP as a leverage to make sure that the government commitment to support farming in the Philippines will be done fully. In fact, if you go over the resolution of the Senate documenting their concurrence to the ratification of RCEP, there are provisions there about commitment of the government to support the agricultural sector. And there is the Special Senate Oversight Committee on RCEP. That's as another safeguard to address and to address the concerns aired before by the agricultural sector and safeguard the interest of the stakeholders in the agricultural sector.
Thank you, Sec. We'll take a question from the other side of the room, sir. Sorry. We have ASEC Allan first before I ask yung question. ASEC Glenn, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. No? Habang there are many initiatives to strengthen our agricultural sector, gusto kong banggitin na we are already actually promoting many exports. No? For example, dung sa IFEX, natatapos lang over the weekend, one of the highlights there was that napakarami pong regional-based enterprises na kasama doon. And the initial report was that there was about at least 61 million generated sales. No? So I wanted to share that for products because there's a huge demand for healthy, natural products, and the Philippines is known for quality of food products. So there's a lot of interest there, and we work closely with DA and other government and private organizations in promoting that. Already, we are very actively participating in food trade shows in Thailand, in Korea, in Japan, and we will be at the CIIE in China in November, which is generating a lot of interest in the Philippines. Gusto ko rin idagdag na as we promote this, no, and I'm sure siguro sa mga kababayan natin, sa mga enterprises, no, ang question nga, paano kami, paano namin maintindihan, paano kami makasama dito, no? The DTI, through our regional provincial offices, as mentioned already, kasama namin sila dun sa aming information campaign, no? Not all regions are very active in exports, but starting with the regions that have very strong or already promising exports, we will capacitate our frontliners there so that questions on RCEP can be understood. I would like to also to tell you that ang DTI po, through our Philippine Trade and Investment Centers, meron tayong 12 offices in the 14 RCEP countries. Dun sa monitoring of imports, very active po kami na pag binabantayan yung presyo doon, no, para may basis tayo na bantayan na yung mga smuggling, and then our enterprises also, as they source their raw materials from these markets, they get a good price, no? Tapos dun sa offensive natin, attracting investments, building relationships with the industries, kasi po ang labanan din sa RCEP is that there has to be collaboration between industries and firms across the RCEP region. We are very much active in promoting that, no? So sabi nga ni Secretary and ni ASEC Allan and Yusek Perry, the engagement is strong, and we are very confident because there are very strong interest also from our partners from these countries to engage us for various reasons. Salamat po.
May also take the floor and really point out the fact that the agricultural sector can only be affected by RCEP positively because those traditional crops I mentioned earlier that are excluded from the negotiations under RCEP with respect to lowering of tariff, they will remain excluded indefinitely. And the big potential for us really is also in the agricultural sector, another segment, those that are producing crops that are processed into specialty food. Okay? And yeah, and a number of them, we're now trying to see whether we can introduce further innovation in our agricultural sector. That segment of the agricultural sector that produce crops that are being processed. For example, coconut. Right now, we're only exporting coconut milk, desiccated coconut, and coconut juice. But there is another important product that can be produced from coconut, and this is the coconut powder that still contains the milk. And this coconut powder is used for flavoring, for example, and for other purposes in production of other manufactured food. Things like this. There are many things that many of our crops can be pulverized, and I'm going to talk to DOST, has certain equipment. They've developed an equipment that can turn many of our crops into powder, and powdered coconut, powdered other crops have a big export market. So they're also in the agricultural sector. Somebody was asking earlier, which sectors will be benefited? It's the agricultural sector, but a segment of it. Okay, the others will be neutral because they're excluded. Okay?
Thank you, ASEC Glenn and Secretary. Next, we have a question from TV5.
Hi, good morning po. I'm Marian Enriquez from TV5. Sorry, sir, but can you enlighten us more about this import surge monitoring system? I understand that stakeholders can ask the DTI and to monitor certain products po. Tapos pag may sudden and sharp increase, they can file a petition. What petition po? Petition to what? And ano pong action ng DTI? Can you walk us through more since it's pretty new to me and maybe to the public? Gaano ba ka-helpful po ba ito? Ano po ba to?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, tama napakahalaga itong import surge monitoring system natin. Kapag nasa free trade area ka, so basically nag-open ka ng market mo, na-liberalize mo, binabaan mo yung taripa, or siniro mo yung taripa, okay, sa mga certain products. So, siyempre, freely, the flow of goods, will be talagang mas preferential na ngayon, yung pag-export, import ng mga produkto. And of course, one big concern ng mga local producers, local stakeholder is that siyempre may kompetensya na sila kasi yung imported product pumapasok na sa bansa natin. So, in other words, question of competition. Okay? So, kapag umabot sa punto na let's say yung imported product ay pumapasok na sa Pilipinas na yung amount or yung volume ay sobra ng taas at masyadong mabilis ang pagpasok at natithreaten na yung mga local producers natin, meron tayong tinatawag na trade remedy. So ito yung tinatawag nating safeguard measure. Okay? Yung safeguard measure na yan, kapag let's say positive ang naging determination ng eventually tariff commission and then as of course approved by the DTI kung industrial product or kung agri sa Department of Agriculture, parang plus yun, dadagdagan mo ngayon para yung presyo ma-level mo, maging fair ang pricing. So yan yung isang measure. Ngayon, ang isa sa mga challenges palagi is that yung mga producers natin usually either wala silang access sa data or information kung talagang mayroon yung sudden surge ng imported product na kakompetensya nila, or kung minsan, siyempre, wala rin silang technical know-how to analyze the flow of imported products. Kaya malaking bagay dito sa import surge monitoring system ngayon, matutulungan natin ang industriya natin, matutulungan natin ang stakeholders para malaman nila na, oops, tumataas na ang importasyon ng isang produkto at itong produkto na to ay basically competing or like products sa mga pinuproduce ninyo. So baka pwede kayo mag-file ng petition para mag-impose ng safeguard measures. Under our law, pwede rin ang DTI, motu proprio, can initiate that kapag may nakita natin na threat sa local industry. So yun po yung value. I hope I was able to explain that clearly, ma'am. So ito po yung talagang, sabi ko nga, is at malaking programa for our stakeholders. Thank you.
Okay.
Nasagot ba yung tanong, madam?
Sir, so ibig sabihin pag nag-file po ng petition, we can halt po yung importation of a certain product? May ganun po ba? Sorry.
Sorry.
Pwedeng itigil, for example, yung importation of a certain product if we see na mas marami na ini-import natin sa yung competing mga products locally? May ganun ba?
Well, two things, of course, merong proseso yan. May investigation. And usually, ang safeguard measures na pinapatong natin is additional charges, or additional, yun yung safeguard duties na tinatawag natin. So, ang effect nun, kapag pinatong mo yon, nagmamahal yung pag-angkat ng produkto na yon. Siyempre, pag mahal ang pag-angkat ng produkto, deterrent yon sa importer na mag-angkat pa ng mas maraming produkto kasi mahal na. At kung magbibenta ka rito locally, siyempre, hindi ka na competitive. Yun yung effect. Ngayon, kapag let's say under exceptional circumstances, talagang yung threat ay napaka-imminent, kahit pending yung investigation, pwede ka mag-impose ng provisional safeguard measures. So, pag nag-impose ka, ipapatong na yon,
And in parallel, may ongoing investigation. That's good for 200 days. So dapat bilisan lang yung investigation, ma-file agad sa Tariff Commission. Tariff Commission will conduct the investigation, and then yung findings nila, i-recommend nila sa DTI kung yun ay industrial product. And then of course, the Secretary will take appropriate measures on that. So, yun po.
Yung safeguard tariff, applicable lang yun kung merong nasasagasaan o natatapakang local producer. Kung nag-surge yung import, wala namang naapektuhang local producer, okay lang yun. Ano ba yung product na hindi natin piniproduce pero pini-import natin heavily? May example ka ba? Hindi piniproduce sa Philippines pero ini-import natin.
Well, offhand sir, siyempre yung dairy, malakas.
Hindi, mga iPhones, di ba nagpo-produce ng iPhones di ba? Ang nagko-compete doon, puro imported, Bahala sila. Okay? Hindi natin poproteksyonan ang any of those brands, Sa cement, diyan kami where we took action, Initially, safeguard duty kasi meron tayong cement manufacturing dito. Meron din naman nag-i-import ng cement from Thailand, or Vietnam. Na mas mura. Okay, compared sa production natin dito. So, at one point, dinigyan natin ng safeguard tariff. Ngayon, tapos na yon, nagkaroon ng dumping duties naman.
Okay, last 3 questions po. Here, and there. Starting with ma'am.
Asek Allan, can I just ask you, is this the first time that we're going to institutionalize some sort of monitoring? Kasi parang we have had ASEAN, meron tayong Japan, Japan FTA. Parang why is it like a big deal that we sort of discuss this? Meron naman talagang institution like in the WTO to tap yung safeguards or other trade remedies. Why so special that RCEP we're doing this for the first? Are we doing this for the first time?
Yes, first time siya. Thank you, Irma, for that question. First time siya in the sense na hindi lang natin ma-institutionalize yung monitoring system, but meron tayong mechanism na yung ating stakeholders actively pwede mag-enroll sa system and as BIS to, of course, keep track of the competing products, imported competing products. Of course, yung sinasabi mo na trade data, tama naman yun, namomonitor naman yung trade data natin, yung statistic, export, imports, ganun din, meron din tayo sa UN na data, may PSA tayo, nakikip track natin yon. Pero, ang kagandahan dito, specific tariff lines, So, kumbaga mas proactive ka ngayon. Kasi yung data na nakukuha mismo from the Bureau of Customs, yun ang ipoprocess natin at titingnan at i-advise yung stakeholders na, oops, itong competing product mo nito mukhang unusual ang movement. Mukhang napansin namin, dumadami na. Ano bang nangyayari? And more than that, malaking bagay din siya sa policy making. At least makikita natin yung trends. Ano nangyayari on the ground. So yun po yung value talaga niyan. Kaya for me, I really submit na napakahalaga po ito.
Okay, daily.
Yung value niyong monitoring na yan, lalo na dun sa mga produkto na produce ng mga small businesses, Kasi malalaking businesses, sigurado yan, meron silang sariling monitoring, kamukha nung sa cement at saka sa plastic products, yung mga polypropylene, di ba? Steel. Alam na nila yan Ang bibigyan natin ng tulong yung mga pinoproduce ng mga maliliit na kumpanya.
Okay, Daily Tribune next.
Hi sir, good morning. Rafi Ayeng, Daily Tribune. Sir, you have mentioned kanina on the study of RCEP benefits sa neighboring countries natin may significant help. Ano po yung mga industries na nag-benefit sa export? And ilang percent yung tulong sa export nila?
Ang nabasa ko, initially, ang nakinabang puro mga food products, agriculture din. Sa seafoods, sa Vietnam, 34% increase in seafood exports with RCEP countries accounting for 64% of the export market. Durian to China, Nung 2022, itong data na to eh. So, dahil nga bago pa lang, siyempre yung existing export products na, no? And ano yan, yung mga agricultural. Kasi karamihan naman ng members ng ASEAN, except siguro Singapore na talagang highly urbanized, ano? Agriculture ang main output, no? Mukha ng Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia. So doon unang nagkakaroon ng pakinabang at ang target market yung mga malaking bansa kamukha ng China. Na imagine, ano ba ang population ng China? 1.2 billion? 1.4 na ba? Yan yung dati sabi nila, kung bawat isang Chinese iinom ng isang boteng Coke, billion yung mabebenta mo. Ganon na rin lumalabas ngayon sa durian. Nagkaroon bigla ng interest ang mga Chinese sa durian. Kaya nung nasa China kami, nung early January, nagpirmahan na kami ng protocol, nung kasama si Presidente, ng protocol for the importation by China of durian from the Philippines. Kaya nag-start na magkaroon ng shipment. Ang problema natin, kumaka na sinasabi ko nga, andun yung market, yung production natin, kailangan nating palakasin. Kasi ang laki ng demand eh. Pero wala tayong production. Yung mga kausap ka namin Chinese, gusto nila, maghanap sila rito, merong isa, 4,000 hectares. Sila na mismo magtatanim dito. Pero I'm sure, magkakaroon ng response ang ating mga negosyante.
So sir, sa Pilipinas po kaya, ano po kaya yung sa Pilipinas po, ano pong product ang pwedeng mag-improve on the first year implementation or yung mga bababang presyo?
Yun na rin yun eh. Seafoods.
We can say agricultural po.
Kasi hindi pa yung sa manufacturing, may setup time yun eh. Bawa, foreign investor, magtatayo rito ng planta. Ano yun? Over a few years, bago magkaroon ng production.
Okay, thanks. DWIZ.
Magandang umaga po, David Oro. Tumayo ho ko para makita nyo. Malit po kasi ako eh. David Oro po, DWIZ and Aliw Channel 23. Para ho sa mga maliliit na negosyante na katulad ho namin, we understand ang RCEP ay binuo para tulungan po ang mga maliliit na negosyante para makapag-import ng mga mas murang mga raw materials. At the same time, makalahok ko sila sa mas malawak o mas malalaking market. Ano kung kinakailangan na gawin po ng mga maliliit na negosyante? Kinakailangan po ba nilang sumama sa mga cooperative, mga grupo, para magkaroon ho sila ng mas malakas na pwersa, maging sistematiko bago ho makipag-ugnayan po sa DTI. Salamat po.
Individually, pwede naman makipag-ugnayan yung mga producers. Kung maganda talaga yung mga small producers mag-organize para consolidated yung production nila and they can meet, matutugunan nila yung malaking demand abroad. Especially sa mga products coming out of our agricultural crops. Usok-uso naman yan eh. Yung meron nga dito, isang Thai company nag-ooperate sa Philippines. Ang laki ng production niya. Pero meron siyang sariling farm, pero maliit lang. Karamihan ng ini-export niya, binibenta rin dito, locally, galing sa mga contract farmers. Pwedeng contract farming sa shrimps. Ang familiar lang tayo, yung contract growing ng San Miguel noon, di ba? Sa chicken. Yung magnolia, di ba? Contract growing. Pero yun, pwede rin sa shrimp, pwede sa hog, any crop, Yung isang kaibigan ko, exporter ng coconut juice. Yung coconut water. Ang source nila, yung mga small coconut plantations around their factory sa Mindanao. So, pwedeng mga farmers mismo mag-organize silang sarili o a major producer, yung processor ng agricultural products, silang mag-organize dun sa mga farmers through contract farming. ang DTI can facilitate. No? Kung pagtatayo naman ng cooperative ang kailangan, meron ang DTI na Cooperative Development Authority.
Okay. Thank you. Next is GMA News Online.
Maybe just to add no, na isa sa serbisyo ng Bureau of Domestic Trade natin is alamin yung mga raw materials o kaya yung mga suppliers from all over the country. We are building that database para maibigay ito dun sa mga nangangailangan. No? There are ongoing initiatives, for example, sa Sorsogon, may pupuntang team inorganize ng Domestic Trade Bureau, yung mga buyers ng mga malalaking companies dito sa Manila, dadalhin namin sa Sorsogon. So we can also do that for other regions. And in fact, yung programa ng EMB, yung Usapang Exports, may mga request na sa mga regions na napupunta kami doon para ituro yung anong opportunities, and then to link them doon sa value chain nga. It can start with the bigger companies dito sa Pilipinas, and then who will link us now to the bigger markets abroad. Salamat po.
Thank you, Asek Len. GMA News Online.
Sir, Ted Cordero po, GMA News Online. Sir, going back to the import monitoring system, do you have a ceiling or parameters to determine na masyado nang mataas or masyado nang mabilis yung pagpasok ng imports and it's already damaging to the local sector?
Yes, that's part of the system and the assistance that our department through our Bureau and Import Services can provide. As I have mentioned earlier, there are elements that you have to comply. So basically, titingnan mo yung surge of importation. So sudden ba and sharp. Second is that of course, ano yung period of investigation or at least at the outset yung analysis na gagawin mo. And then after determining kung merong sudden and sharp increase ng isang particular product, ang importante is that titingnan mo kung it threatens the local industry. And for you to come up with that conclusion, very important that you come up with a causal link. So dapat may linkage din. So hindi siya ganun ka-mathematical. Just because na nag-increase, automatically mag-impose ka ng safeguard. So meron ka talagang linkage and at the same time determine if at the very least it threatens the local industry. So those are the three elements na yung titingnan.
Okay, in the interest of time, we'll take our last question po from Manila Standard.
That's not, sir. Sir, how much worth of investment are we expecting in the first 5 years na effective tong RCEP? How much worth of investments are we expecting to come in the first 5 years po ng RCEP? Or how many percent will it increase exports or total trade?
Medyo mahirap bumasa niya sa crystal ball, Basta ang importante kailangan ginagawa natin everything that's needed to attract foreign investors. Okay yung legal and regulatory environment. Okay yung ease of doing business in terms of the time it takes to get permits and licenses. Kailangan siguraduhin natin lahat yung enabling conditions. And then, I'm sure, yung pasok ng investments susunod. Pero to estimate, your guess is as good as mine, I will say.
Okay, Manila Standard.
Good morning, sir. Sir, in terms of investments, so meron din ba tayong preferential treatment like for RCEP countries? Are they entitled to like a higher or more incentives, or will they be subject to the kung ano lang yung pinibigay offered by BOI?
Yung investments ang sinasabi mo? Meron tayong mga system of incentives. Meron tayong create law, as you will recall, that provides for a set of incentives, mostly fiscal incentives or tax incentives. Merong initially income tax holiday, 5 to 7 years. And then after that, for certain industries, pwedeng magkaroon ng shift to 5% corporate income, tax of 5% on gross income. And then merong yung duty-free importation of equipment, duty-free importation of some raw materials, yung mga ganong incentives. Ano? Especially kung export-oriented. For example, duty-free ang import ng raw materials kasi i-export naman yun. Ano?
Sir, walang bago. Like,
Walang bago?
existing.
Ito ang champion ng incentives for investments, our managing head of the Board of
Thank you, sir.
Investment.
Ma'am Otel, in effect, walang separate na preferential incentives that will be given to RCEP partners. However, if you would take a look at the composition of the RCEP, yung ating mga biggest country sources of investments are from the RCEP countries, save for EU and the US. So malaking pakinabang na rin na nandito tayo sa RCEP. Thank you.
Pero in-explain nga ni ASEC Allan kanina, yung parang incentive na rin, in quotes, is yung facilitation, no? Tsaka yung simplified rules.
Okay, we will make sure to answer all the questions offline. Napaka-engaging po nung usapan ngayon. Please send them to pru@dti.gov.ph. We also got some online questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the conclusion of this press briefing. On behalf of the Department of Trade and Industry, I would like to extend my gratitude to everyone for your very active engagement and very insightful questions. To our DTI panelists, thank you for sharing your expertise and valuable perspectives on the RCEP. RCEP stands as a landmark trade agreement uniting 15 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, and its potential impact on our nation cannot be overstated. The information shared today have shed light on the opportunities that lie ahead in terms of market access, trade facilitation, investment, and regional integration. As we conclude, I encourage all of you to carry forward the knowledge gained today. Let's continue our discussions and conversations. Collaboration, dialogue, and an open exchange of ideas will support the Department of Trade and Industry in maximizing the benefits of this agreement. Once again, thank you for your time, your active participation, and your very thoughtful questions. The Department of Trade and Industry will continue to do its work to build a more vibrant and resilient economy for the Philippines. Maraming salamat. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Magbibigay lang ako ng parting word. I'd like to invite our media friends to help us make RCEP a launching pad for invigorating Philippine industry, particularly the small businesses in the Philippines. Thank you.